Okay, here we are. Here's our science question for today. How does heat flow? So we're also asking, how does heat move? There are three ways that heat moves. The first one, so we will say heat flows through radiation. Can you repeat? Conduction, convection. Okay, good. So radiation is heat that moves as energy waves, and radiation is the way that heat comes from the sun to the earth. So we'll do this. When we say radiation, we'll do a hand motion that is through energy waves. We'll say radiation. Now, conduction is when heat moves through solids. So like when your metal spoon is in your pot and it gets hot because the pot is also hot. So we're going to imagine both my hands are together. We're going to put two hands together and bump fists. So solid to solid. Conduction. Okay. The last one is convection. And this is heat moving by pulling things down with gravity. So we're going to pull down with gravity, convection. Okay, how does heat flow? Let's all say together. Heat flows through radiation, conduction, convection. One more time. How does heat flow? Heat flows through radiation, conduction, convection. Okay, good job. We're going over here to our timeline. All right, we'll say age of information and globalization, circa 1970 to the present. Watergate, President Nixon resigns. Fall of communism in Eastern Europe. European Union formed. Apartheid abolished in South Africa. September 11, 2001. Rising tide of freedom. Rising tide of freedom. Okay, let's do it again. Age of information and globalization, circa 1970 to the present. Watergate, President Nixon resigns. Fall of communism in Eastern Europe. European Union formed. Apartheid abolished in South Africa. September 11, 2001. Rising tide of freedom. Rising tide of freedom. Let's go even faster. Age of information and globalization, circa 1970 to the present. Watergate, President Nixon resigns. Fall of communism in Eastern Europe. European Union formed. Apartheid abolished in South Africa. September 11, 2001. Rising tide of freedom. Rising tide of freedom. Timeline. This is my timeline. All right. Good job, everybody. Now, the music and orchestra that we would have done, I would have been going through this book, Classical Music for Dummies, and you should have your link to listen to the music. And we've already listened to all three songs. So today, we would have gone back through and listened to each one of them again, like we did the very first time. I would have you listen all the way through to all three songs, and I would ask you this time maybe to draw or to work on some sort of an art project, or just to think about, how do these pieces make you feel? How are they different from each other? And how are they the same? So our first one that we would have listened to was Beethoven, Beethoven's Fifth, and then Brahms, and then last week we did Dvorak. So Beethoven, Brahms, and Dvorak. And I would have you listen to them, and I want you to pay attention to the different instruments in the orchestra. Here we've got some strings, harp, piano, more strings. I sent you that video a couple weeks ago with lots of different instruments and the showcasing of those things. Here we've got the woodwinds, piccolo, flute, oboe, clarinet, saxophone, bassoon. Oops. And here's our percussion. Now listen for those things. And whoops, here are our trumpets. We've got trombone, tuba, French horn, trumpet. What is that? Cornet. Okay, so one other thing that I would suggest that you do, that we are going to do this week, is we're going to find the movie, the Disney movie called Fantasia. And at the beginning of that, I think, there is kind of a highlighting of the different parts of the orchestra. And then if you kind of can pick and choose, there's a lot in there, but if you can pick and choose, there's some really cool parts that showcase different orchestra pieces, different pieces that you can listen to and see how someone has artistically interpreted that. So we're going to be watching that movie this week, or at least parts of that, and I would encourage you to do the same. Now, our science is this stuff. We've got, this is what we would have been doing. We've got Play-Doh and straws and popsicle sticks. So I think this week would have been catapults, and you can find those in your foundations guide. I think it's page 184, but I'll check and I'll include it in the email. You can also always go back and do some of the others, like building a bridge and building a tower, and see how tall of a tower you can get or how strong of a bridge you can get. So, you girls, I miss you a lot. I can't believe that we have today and one more week. Let's plan to get together for a Zoom meeting, just really brief again, just so we can see each other's faces. I would love to hear something for you to present. But don't feel the pressure, because I know it's very different to do that on Zoom. So we'll see you all later. Bye, everyone.